imagine the world without opioid overdoses. So what am I doing? I'm trying my damnedest to put some political pressure. By being a surrogate to the White House, there's an opportunity. You're asked to be siloed into these there's law enforcement, there's behavioral medicine, there's integrative medicine, there's prevention, there's treatment, there's about 140 surrogates. So when I get a chance to go in the room, and I wasn't lying before if you were here and you heard me say that I'm known as the cage shaker, because I can't handle the conversations about prevention, which I'm supposed to be participating in, and all we're talking about is preventing death. Now, isn't that the bottom line, though? Isn't the goal to prevent death? But you can't do prevention only by saying there's more Narcan available on the street. 484% increase in Narcan availability in the last year and a half. That's great, right? I mean, it's a fantastic stat. But if that's all we're concerned about, we're not going upstream. So I get to shake hands and hang out and talk. Well, I had a chance to actually be on a call. It was funny. I think I was on the call. My wife was with me, who's the smoking hot lady that you'll see walking around. She's back there somewhere. And I'm trying to get my code to punch in so I could make a comment, because I'm so furious that 40 minutes goes by and prevention is all about Narcan and distribution. We're doing a great job, and I'm like, my code. And then I was talking to Kellyanne and Andrew Giuliani, who's Mayor Giuliani's son, who are the point people at the White House. And I said, you got to take me off of the surrogate team. And they're like, nobody's ever said they want to come off. Everybody says they want to be on. I said, I can't take it anymore. I can't if I'm not allowed to speak about what real prevention is, which is really integrative medicine. If 80% of heroin users started with a prescription medication and we don't address the largest reason that we have a problem, then you asked me to be there, not to participate. So they gave me the floor at one of the meetings for about 40 minutes, and I shook that cage like there was nobody's business. And I started it by saying, look, I have two doctors who are my best friends, an emergency room doctor, myself, and a family physician. We go swimming at the same hole every Sunday. It's right before a waterfall that's massive in its fall, because that's where the fish are. We get there and there's bodies flailing all over the place. They're hitting the edge, dropping off the side to their demise. Before I could blink, the ER doctor's at the edge, taking as many people off the edge as he can, because that's what they do. The primary care is building a raft and going in the middle of the water and saying, I'm going to try to put as many on the raft before they hit the water's edge, because that's what they do. And they're like, John, where the heck are you going? I'm swimming like an animal upstream to say, you guys figure that out, but I got to find out who's pushing everybody in the water, or are they jumping in themselves? So you start out a conversation with something so simple, and at least you get an audience to have the conversation. When I'm there, I actually have a buddy that I make sure I'm friends with, because if they really get pissed off at me, I go to the dog or Antonio Merigliano, who looks like he could rip your face off without the dog. It's funny, because when we talk about the opioid crisis, it's the only room in the White House that doesn't have 10 fire extinguishers, because it's the only room that no one argues or has any issues with each other. This is at the Fentanyl Summit in New York, and this is where some of that consulting goes on with the Department of Justice and the DEA and JFK Airport and some of the Border Patrol issues with fentanyl crossing over. So that's kind of like the I love me slides, to show you that I'm not here just because I have an idea, but because I'm so plugged into the political side. And now what's happened as a result, I'm now plugged into Hollywood and entertainment and some other things that now, if something has come across me to be able to pull off, that I think will be clearly the #1 thing that could take place for this crisis, and having a team behind me of people who are fighting a war, and I need the soldiers that are people in this room, and you'll clearly see what I mean when I explain. The Atlanta Summit, I don't know if any of you have heard, there's just recently, as a surrogate, we had to tap in to the summit or attend. I didn't attend because I was coming here, so I tapped in. Some of the latest, up-to-date data was given. The president and the first lady spoke. Some of the cabinet members spoke. There was some of the researchers. It was a great conference. There was a lot of new information, but a lot of the old. But there's another $6 billion package that's trying to get put through Congress. Just to give you a real quick explanation of what that looks like, there was a state of emergency versus a health emergency, and people were ripping it apart in the news about the state of emergency calls for billions of dollars that are in this account that we could immediately use as funds, and the health emergency had $47 in it. It's like, so why would he do that? Well, because the state of emergency, the bat phone rings and FEMA picks up. Do you think FEMA is going to have a clue to help the opioid crisis? A health emergency, it goes directly to the people that need to fix this. So what happens is that Congress has to then appropriate the funds into that, and $6 billion was appropriated into it, and now they're budgeting to get the next $6 billion. So it's better that it's in the health emergency so that we consistently get funding for it. The death rates have flattened over the past 12 months, which is really, really good because they have been going up really bad year to year, 6 months to 6 months. Every time I'm on those calls when CDC is putting the numbers from months prior, not years prior, because that's the statistical stuff that you see, it just was so ugly. Finally, it's starting to kind of level off. 484% increase in naloxone dispensing. I put that back to back because if you increase the amount of naloxone that's available, and the reason that the death toll over the last 12 months has leveled off is because there's an availability of the ability to stop people from passing away. It does not mean that we're not starting the addictive process first. It just means we found a way to curb some of the deaths. The Truth Initiative and the Ad Council campaign spent over $40 million, and a lot of it was given away as gratis, as some of the commercials that ran, 1.4 billion views. Has any one of you seen the Truth campaign, the Ad Council for the opioid crisis? Raise your hand if you've seen it. That's insane. The amount of money they put behind that, and there was like 7 hands got raised in here. It's not breakthrough content, these things. It's not virally shared. You can't get there's no motivation if you've seen it to share it with somebody, and it makes people look insane. One of them is a girl behind the wheel in a car saying that she has to get her pills, and she pushes the gas pedal and drives into a wall of a building so she can go to the hospital and be prescribed the medication. Whoop. Isn't the idea to destigmatize the people who suffer? 1 in 10 people look for help. 1 in 10 of the addicted will look for help because the stigma is so bad that they can't or not want to, or even in the hospital system when they go in and they've overdosed, they're told, like, oh, here he is again. Somebody comes in with a heart condition or has another physical problem, they're followed up, they're given medication, they're sent out, they refer them to a doctor. If you go in for an overdose, behind the curtain, they're talking to each other like, oh yeah, it's him again. The stigma is so terrible. It is so terrible. So how would you, if 1.4 billion impressions must have been people at the Ad Council going like this? Because everywhere I speak, and I'm in front of 20,000 people, 10,000 people, 15,000 people, 1,000 people. Every time I ask, no one saw the damn thing. How are we getting the word out to curb the problem before it starts? 34% decrease in total amount of opioids prescribed. This actually pissed me off. Now I have to represent the current administration because I'm a surrogate to this issue. But when you start talking points for campaigning already, right now, the president gave his speech a few days ago, and this is not about politics, and I'm independent in many ways, and I really like some of the things that are going, and then some things I don't. But this it sang out, because the meeting prior was 34% decrease in total amount of opioids prescribed. In the conversation, it was 34% decrease in opioids prescribed, not opioid prescriptions. So the regulations went from 30 pills that you were allowed to sign for, they're curbing it to 7 or 8 per prescription. So the same amount of prescriptions are being put out there, just less pills. You know how long it takes to become addicted to an opioid if you're taking them and you're the right person that's in that position to become addicted? 3 days. Quick slide to give you some statistics again that more of this stuff is to piss people off, just like everybody else was doing, so that you can get a real good grasp on how bad the problem is if you don't already know. A lot of you may have heard me speak before. Some of the statistics are newer, but this just makes me upset that 650,000 prescriptions are written, 4,000 people start not medical use of opioid prescriptions, 3,300 visits to the emergency room on a daily basis. 90 babies are born addicted. 140 people die every single day from an overdose. 60 of those deaths are now related to fentanyl. Here's another thing that's getting me aggravated, where now it's like blaming fentanyl. Pharma loves to just pick up on this and say, well, it's no longer a problem with prescription drugs. The reason is these guys are addicts, they're fools, they go down that path, and fentanyl's killing them because it's mixed in heroin. Heroin has nothing to do with what we prescribe. Remember the statistic, 80% of heroin users started with a prescription medication. Now, some of that number may be that it was diverted to them because their kids are taking it out of the medicine cabinet and bringing it to a party, or somebody just stole them because they had a slight addiction. I don't care how it happened, because if it's 80% of a prescription medication, the key word is prescription. Somebody had to write the damn thing, and somebody had to fill it, and somebody had to take it. You've heard this statistic before. It's enough to make you upset and angry, and I hope it does. The leading cause of death of Americans under 50 years old. The leading cause of death for Americans under 50 years old. The leading cause of death. If you add up 8 years of the Vietnam War, 8 years of the Iraq War, 16 years of the Afghanistan War that we were there for, add all the deaths that occurred in all those wars, we lose more people every year to opioid overdoses than all the years combined of war. And I saw movies and remember times and people picketing and the war, and we got to save our kids, and how can this happen? Everybody was going nuts all over the place. Where the hell is it for this? 32 years of war, we lost less people than every single year we lose to this crisis? We saw this statistic. I have the 90% up, and I know, Mike, you had said that you see some of the stuff, the research, the things that are out there range from 80 to 90, and I'll tell you why. 80% is the prescription side of the abuse. The reason we go to 90 is because the illicit opioids that come flooding in from the Middle East, Mexico, and China, we're the biggest consumers of it. So it is actually slightly less than 5% of the world's population, and it is 90% of all the opioids consumed. And I know it's been said and you hear it and you know it, but just let that kind of get into your bones, and you can't. How the hell does pharma put us in a position, between the marketing and the skills that they are and the things that happen through the government and follow the money trail, how we're allowed to have been duped so bad that this can happen? The battle starts at home, right? It takes 5 days to become addicted. It's actually 3. More research shows the number 5, but the CDC actually put something out that said 3. Now, how many, by a show of hands right now, how many people right now, if you know you can save somebody's life from this crisis, would you do something about it? Tomorrow is National Take Back Day. And I'm standing here on stage asking you if you want to save a life. You know how you do it? Before you go to bed tonight, share it on every social media feed that you have to make sure that you tell everyone you know the importance of taking back that medication. Last year, we got 950,000 pounds of drugs brought back. I was on that call. I was on the stuff to get the word out last year. Then I was on the call with the White House after, and I was like, 950,000 pounds. That's more than the weight of 3 Boeing 757s. Imagine that, 3 massive airplanes made of pills that we were able to collect. Diversion is a huge issue. If you don't think that, well, some of you people have had your wisdom teeth pulled, you've gone to the ER, you've had medications, and they're sitting around. You take it, you don't like the way you feel, but you know it's really strong. I don't know one day if my left toe will be removed, and I might need it again, and it goes into that dark place until you forgot you had it, and a nephew or a niece or somebody in your family came over for a function, or the cleaning lady or what, I don't care who it was, and took it out of the medicine cabinet, and because you didn't use it, you don't even remember you had it, it's gone, and it killed somebody. You all raised your hand, you want to save somebody's life? Go home, get rid of everything that's in your cabinets that you don't use. You're already helping the problem. You know you can save somebody's life. It's so simple. 50% greater chance that an athlete's going to get prescribed something. Hello, are we not in the wheelhouse? I mean, integrative medicine and sports injury. How, the stomping of the foot all day has been, we have never been in a better position to go out and tell our story. It's how do we get the story out, and how do we get it out in such an impact into the masses? It's the difficult part of any messaging is what becomes viral, what do they hear, how do we get them to change their mind? It's a society of instant gratification. We're broken. It's us. The war's being fought, and I'm staring at soldiers. And you got your hands and your ability to make a difference. You gotta be part of the solution. And when it comes to recognition of what we do, it's happening over and over and over. State laws are being passed. Mike, we spoke about in West Virginia what they did. Do you know that at the conference that I was telecasted into this week, West Virginia had a 20% decrease in overdose deaths. Now the rest of the country was kind of going up in spots. They went down. Thank God. You know what? So we had Narcan distribution go up by 500%, but we also had a really funny little law that got passed over there. How many of you are familiar with the law that was passed in West Virginia? Okay. So the governor goes to the medical, it's MCAM, and by us, it's like the medical committee or conference or group that's state by state, and he was asked to come to speak. So instead of really speaking any topic, he got pissed off and went up and said, you need to tell me why I just heard that 80% of heroin users started with a prescription medication, and you guys are writing them. How in the world is that okay? After the debate went back and forth, the answer was that nothing else is covered. We try to send them for something else, whether it's physical therapy or chiropractic care or acupuncture. They come back to us, say they have a $50 deductible, a $10,000 deductible and $50 copay. They're not going to go for treatment that we know works. He was so, and the answer is like 3 minutes to write a prescription and get them out the door, and 30 minutes to explain to them why they have to go to do something else. Insurance covers the medications sometimes with no copay or $5 once for a bottle of 30, but for us they can't get the care. He passed legislation in West Virginia that said you have to use integrative medicine before a prescription for an opioid is made if it's not cancer, crush injuries, or major surgery. So in parentheses next to integrative medicine, it says physical therapy, chiropractic, acupuncture, mindfulness. Like half of us have been doing this kind of stuff since we started practice, and now all of a sudden it falls into the category. So then they said, if you want to sell insurance carriers all over the world, you want to sell insurance into my state of West Virginia, you have to cover 20 visits of integrative medicine, same copay as a primary care physician, no deductibles applied, and if they want to go without a referral, they can go. Now, that is the most sweeping piece of legislation that has ever happened to us as a group. That's amazing. And now there's 4 or 5 other states with this stuff in the hopper. And if you don't think I'm punching the lights out of this thing when I'm anywhere, And if you want me to come and speak at your state, if you have an in with the governor, a mayor, somebody, a councilman, somebody who's listening and speaking, you could reach out to me. Please reach out to me. I will go in and lend that gravitas of the things I'm doing and let you take over as the expert and do whatever you want with it. It's your state. It's what you're doing. But if I can help, I'll do it. So we're ambushed by a system that's meant to protect us. Big pharma, government, and culture of society. Big pharma, we know, went through this blasted way of 38 people were put into a study. It showed that they weren't addictive. It was the most ridiculous thing that was ever put through. Purdue pushed it through and then started getting OxyContin marketed, and then the other companies jumped in. This is too small to see, and it's not meant for you to see. It's for me to talk about the fact that there's a timeline from 1995 to now that the corruption was so deep. I'm talking like the payments that were made. Do you know 58 attorneys in this time frame were hired out of our government system from the Department of Justice and the DEA to work for pharma? It was a circular system of like, get our laws passed, and then your measly salary will 10 times. We need Grant here. 10 times your salary. Come work for pharma. Laws get passed. We're okay. Out you go. Come work for pharma. 2 of those 58 were the highest level law enforcement in our country. The Deputy Attorney General of the United States of America twice was taken out and went to work for pharma. You don't understand how much of a churn we have of this corruption of money and movement of laws and protection. Now, part of this was these distribution companies. I'll go through a simple little thing to explain to you what happens. Drug companies make drugs. They can only make a certain amount, but they have to know what the distribution companies are doing with it when they send it to them, because they don't sell anything. When the pharmaceutical companies and doctors' offices that sell prescriptions in their system call on the distribution companies and said, we need more, we need more, they're supposed to track it. They're supposed to make sure that everybody knows within the system how much is going where. We had pharmacies in West Virginia where there was 8,000 people in the population. They were getting 4 million prescriptions for opioids in 1 year. In Florida, it was worse. It was the 95 oxy corridor, they called it. People were coming from Rhode Island and Maine. They would load up in a bus, and a driver would come down. They'd go to a minute clinic, get their prescription, get put back on the bus, given $200, getting a jar of 90 pills, not 30. Those guys would take that and sell it on the street for thousands of dollars. The distribution companies are supposed to know when these guys are overdoing it, and they didn't. That's what Grant was talking about in his slide. They just had the bust of a distribution company and the CEO who runs it because of the amount of money that was getting shifted through for them to shut up. Is anybody pissed off? Yeah, I'm pissed off. A little more pissed off? Okay. This is what we're up against. The man who approved the label for OxyContin 2 months after he pushed it through the FDA was hired by Purdue, the maker of OxyContin. Now, this slide, this peeling of the onion, there is no way you're even going to see what the hell I have written up there. You're not supposed to. What this thing, the reason I built this slide is because when I do talks, there's always push and blame and how and but we don't fully understand the gravity of where this comes from, how we got there, tell the story, get some sympathy, empathy. The people who suffer, they suffer and they're just put out to pasture. It's just incredible how the stigma is so terrible we can't fix it. Everything that's popping up on that screen has something to do with the fact that you're born, the miracle of birth, and you die. of an opioid overdose. You don't just die after you have the miracle of birth. There's 1,000 things that are taking place. We need to understand, pay attention, and have feeling for where the process came from, who's victimized by it, who has mental illness associated with it, where's the drugs coming from. It's being pushed to the street, it's easier, there's peer pressure. There's so many pieces to this puzzle. So you can't just look at that person that's on the street corner with his head in the bushes and you walk by and say, look what you're doing to yourself. When I'm done with what I'm doing and what I'm going to show you, everyone is going to walk by that person and say, look what we did to you. When the Kaiser Foundation did a study, they asked who's to blame for this. 68% of our population say the people who use painkillers. That means at a minimum of half this room, if we were lay people, because I know you guys have a different view on it, would blame the person who's taking the medication and not this ugly web that I'm just unveiling to you. That's not okay. Like we need to push this so far away it won't show up on any slide. Get rid of it. So what my campaign that I'm in the middle of, and the obvious objective is to reduce the number of opioid deaths from overdose. But breakthrough is not easy. So we're talking about how are we going to do this. We've never been in a better position. We've got to make sure we capitalize on this. Everything's blowing up. Medical doctors are handcuffed. They don't know what to do. They can't write the prescription. They're looking for options. We're slowly starting to get covered by insurance. But how do you let them know that you're an option? Like, what are we doing to say, by the way, here we are. This is the people who fix it. How do you do that? How do you do that when there's ad campaigns run by the federal government that get billion impressions and nobody says they've heard it? I brought my proposal to the state of Maryland, and we were talking about them participating and trying to raise some funds to get a project done. And they're like, Jesus, I spent $400,000 on a campaign that we put on TV, and it was me sitting behind the desk talking about the problem. I said, well, we got a bigger problem. There's nobody who knows this topic better than me, and I'm conceited about a lot of things. I'm very conceited about this. No one can touch me on what the problem is from birth to death and all the crap that's in between. Everybody's siloed as an expert in their pieces. Nobody understands it more in a group than I do. So if you're doing that and I didn't see it, I have so much of threads on the opioid crisis that comes to me on a daily basis. If I didn't see it and I live in your state, you're throwing your money away. It's not breakthrough content. You're not and look, society's screwed too, because everyone knows there's an opioid crisis, right? But doesn't everybody think someone else is taking care of it? Especially if it's not your problem. Look at the slide, gun violence, the flu outbreak, a Zika virus, cyberbullying, gonorrhea alert, vaping. Every day you hear of another major issue, and we're just desensitized to say, yeah, there's issues, but somebody's taking care of it. So when you hit on realize the danger, we're going to look at how one pill can kill, because there are children going to college their freshman year and not doing so well and a little stressed out. And a buddy says, don't worry, I know your parents would freak out if they know you failed half your classes and they're paying for your tuition. Here's a Xanax, it'll calm you down. But that Xanax was made in the basement of somebody's house, and it was laced with fentanyl. Dead. In Colorado, there was 8 cases in a week's time because all the Xanax were laced with fentanyl. They've never had to touch anything. They never had to be part of that. They just fell into a suggestion and they're gone. Those are the things we don't even realize happen to take care of. So I want to make sure that people understand. One accident will take you If you have kids or nieces, nephews, or grandchildren, whatever it is, make sure that they understand that that one thing might not be what they're... If I go online right now and type in how to press... I don't even have to finish the press. I have the P in how to pee. The third choice on Google is how to press your own pills. How to pee stands first because you didn't finish. Not how to pee, but how to the letter P. Second is how to press your shirt. Third is how to press your own pills. I could go right now on my phone, go online and get a pill press machine delivered before I get home from this conference. It'll be at my doorstep. I could also buy the die cuts that say Xanax, Percocet, or Oxy and put it on the machine. I then have a funnel where I take inositol, some sugar, some heroin, some cocaine, and fentanyl, and it churns and presses out Xanax pills because it's stamped with the Xanax. And I fill my bag and I give it to my buddy who's at the college dorm, and he plants it out. Outside, a lot of this stuff, if you get a prescription, if I get a prescription for an opioid and I take it, I feel like, I don't even know what I feel like. It's not good. I'm like, I'm not digging. I had shoulder surgery. I'm like, it was bad. The pain was pretty bad. And I was like, what the hell? I don't even know who I was, what I was. It just wasn't a good thing. But if I had some level of anxiety, depression, an abusive relationship, I just lost my job for the third time that month, and I took it, I call it the I don't give a S medicine. Because what it does is it puts you in a place where nothing's really that bad. The tendency for you to take it again is there because it makes you feel not so bad. It's not about the high, it's about an escape. That isolation in society, which is only growing stronger every single day, where kids are being put on sugar, at, milk and apple juice, and you're not even like 6 months, and you're, and you're in the aisle having a fit, and your mother's not getting Apple Jacks because she wants to get you something better, and the kid's freaking out, and they're like, God, they can't even control their kid. Yeah, they can't because they're addicted to sugar. So we're priming the pump. Then we got phones, we got video games. Their priming of this dopamine pump is going like crazy. Then the stress, the anxiety, all that stuff. Cortisol is the hatred hormone that pushes off all the good hormones off and fills the space. And once that's happening, when you take an opioid pill, it goes in and fills that area and says, hey, not so bad. Don't worry. There was a Vietnam vet who came back and was decommissioned with his dog, which doesn't happen very often. The timing of the dog going and you coming out is very, very rare. He was put on opioids, was really cranking up, and his wife comes in, the dog ran out in the street, was hit by a car and died. He's got all it in his system, in his underwear watching a ball game. And he looks at her and says, go get another effing dog. When he came off of the opioids, he was suicidal, sobbing for a 24-hour period because he couldn't believe he actually made that statement about the dog passing. It just shows you that it's that I don't care or escape from what the reality is. So that has to be part of it. This is where the best part of it is. Find an alternative to opioids. This is an integrative medicine piece in the website because I'm developing this. This is my project, so I get to guide it. You could type in a zip code right there, and it'll give you a clinic location that does alternative treatment if you're ever suggested or prescribed a medication. It'll also have some video content where myself and Mike will be able to sit there and talk about the importance of what integrative medicine is, all the facets of integrative medicine, all the pieces that are available to us to help fight pain. Whether you're not getting that first prescription, if you've been given it and you're dependent, or you're in full-blown addiction, we're going to talk about the options that are there. That's us telling our story. That's everybody that's in this room who's going to have a level of, you know how, we were talking earlier about having, like, you got to saturate the market. Didn't he say that? How many times did he say it? Saturate. You're not going to get anywhere if you don't saturate the market. You're not going to get anywhere if you don't saturate the market. Integrative medicine, chiropractic in general, acupuncture, some of the things that we put into integrate our practices, we're only seeing, don't get fooled by if they tell you it's like 14, 15%. it's like 9, 10%. Some pockets of the country are higher, and some are really low. Did anybody read the book Tipping Point? It's 15%. So if you make widgets, and 10% of the population buy your widgets, you have 2 factories. The minute you hit 15% and go over it, everybody's got to have the damn widget. You know, Grant pulled out the phone and said, you saturated the market, and then you get everything else, because now it's like you don't even know why you're buying it. You just have to have it. If we sit at that number, we're never going to be participating in this tsunami of an ability to make a change in this country and increase our ability to see more patients, which in general gives us more money in our practice and our businesses. But that's not why you do it. You do the right thing for the right reasons. The truck with money, I hear beep, 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 beep. Every day it comes and drops it off in my driveway. And I never asked for it. But I know I'm doing the right thing. We need to get to the 15%, to the 20%. That's not a big jump. We're not talking about a lot. I'm like yelling at you guys. It's really not your fault. You're actually part of the solution. And I'm like beating you up. I'm just mad. To get to that tipping point's not a lot. And again, we've never been in the same position ever as a group of practitioners to be part of the story to make the change, get to that level. There's not enough PT, chiro, nurse practitioner schools in the country that could churn out enough of us to take care of the population if we get more West Virginia governor likes to start passing the laws that they better see us before they do anything else. But you don't do it without recognition. You got to get that breakthrough content. That's what this is about. This gives us a silly platform. When you get to put in a zip code and the clinics come out, who do you think we're going to have in there? We're going to try to get our troops, our leaders, our people. You know, part of this program, this is not cheap. This is an expensive campaign. I've already been asked 3 times to take it over. YouTube was one of them. You know what I said? It's a Sicilian way of doing it. You could either go like this, you can go like this, or you can go like this. And I did all 3 at the same time. I was like, because I don't want anyone owning this. This is ours. It's not mine, it's ours. If we don't design the messaging to be towards us, this problem won't get fixed. I'm convinced it won't get fixed. What they're doing right now is band-aiding the bleeding. It's triaged, and they're stopping some deaths because they're Narcan's all over the place, and we're opening more treatment centers. I can't stand the thought of more death, the prevention of death in treatment facilities. You're telling me it's okay, get addicted, but we got all this over here for you in case you do. Isn't that the same damn broken system? So this has to push towards us to say we're part of the solution. Return. Put your zip code in, it'll go. Now tomorrow's National Take Back Day. I asked you if you wanted to save a life, please do so. Share, 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 share. But most places now have it in continuum, because that was some of the things when we had our surrogate meetings. It's like, why in the world are we doing a National Take Back Day? Every damn day, we should have people bringing their extra junk somewhere. So it's actually happening now. So if you know and you get the messaging and you hear the stories, and somebody comes on like this kid that I just showed you saying, well, it was so easy to get. Took it from my grandmother. I went to another house. And I had a kid that I was a team doctor for a rugby team, and he got hurt, and he passed away of an overdose. And we go to the funeral, and you talk to the parents, like, I can't believe, like, what? He's like, remember the day that he broke his collarbone and you were on the field and you asked us to take him to the hospital? They gave him a prescription that day and never came off it. And this was like 5-6 years later, and he died of an overdose. And his sister says, you know, Doc, he used to take me on Sundays to open houses. I thought he was trying to buy a house. He was going in and raping the medicine cabinets, asking to use the bathroom. You gotta return the damn opioids because they're getting diverted to the street. The other thing is reach out. Listen happens to be a really good one. We're trying to figure out what's going to fit best in there, where you can actually call a number, a 1-800 number, and then they listen. Like, are you calling on someone's behalf, or are you calling on yourself? And then they redirect, and they can get you the help. Because that has to be part of this platform. Because once we get massive amounts of people to drive through on this, You're talking about, they did a project with Stevie Wonder. It was called Do You Still Have a Dream campaign. So it was 2 podcasts that went out back to back. And the first one was, what are you complaining about? We're the President of the United States, CEOs of companies, athletes, people making all this money. Stop complaining about the color of your skin. And people are like, this is Stevie Wonder. Like, what just happened? But right after, the other one came out and said, don't you ever forget that bigotry still exists. There are plenty of people that still think there's an issue, and don't ever forget that it does. It was a really interesting way of saying, hey, this is really getting good, but we have a problem. It was so viral. They had 2.3 billion, with a B, not million, impressions in 24 hours. These are the people who are making this. I don't know about you, but you know how much it costs to get 2-point-something billion impressions in a short time? A lot of money. Grant's telling us you got to spend to get, that would be a big spend. We're going to have an in-memory page. You'll be able to scan your mouse or finger over an area, and a state could pop up, or you could type a name in, and it'll give you a picture of the person who passed. And if they make a donation to the nonprofit, then they get a space where they can have a memorial for their loved one. And you can click on it, and it may give you a little thing about how nice of a guy this guy was, and he went down the wrong path, and he shouldn't have. There's all these little buttons that certain people get affected by, and what's emotional to them and what works. So we're trying to make sure that each of those availabilities are going to be in there. There's a donate page on the website, obviously. Here are the movie posters. So when you go to the movies, these will be hanging up. How a Cure Became a Killer. A captivated final role. Meanwhile, that actor may have already gone. CBS already said, major cities, if you need to have this up as a billboard and you get this thing, when you get this thing done, we will place it up in major cities. How a Cure Became a Killer, the role she almost died to play. A captivated final role. A curtain call is a must-see. Hollywood's pretty crazy, huh? They come up with these sponsorship availability on the website. Overdose Free America N. That's the government. I went to this drug czar. My relationship is pretty good with everybody in the cabinet. I went and I gave this presentation to him and his assistant. They said, John, go, get it done, don't involve us. It's too big, it's too good. We would tear this thing apart because all the T's and they thought it was really incredible, but they were like, you know what, you have to get this done, you go and get it done. If you need help getting to Google or some of this corporate money, we can make some calls for you. But when I left, I was like, holy cow, They were honest enough to say, don't let the bureaucracy flood in. And that's when my mindset changed from that meeting, which was months ago before this really launched. And that's when I had the conversation with Mike and Colleen. I said, we need to get an army together. I can't have the government or a big company try to take it. It needs to be us. These are the different options of some of the companies. And I did have a meeting with the Blue Cross Blue Shield. Anthem is the company, and they may want to do something in a sponsorship capacity. Here's some of the people anytime I'm with somebody, if you don't think I don't talk about this, if you can't tell the passion that's in my system right now, then maybe you did fall asleep after a lunch. I've had this conversation with the people that you see. It would be nice to get the Karate Kid to come and be like, that's macho right there. Isn't it, right? Karate Kid. You know that, Chaz Palminteri, that's the Bronx Tale. You know who this guy is? No? Nobody knows that? Mike Piazza? Andrea, Cara DiGuardi. This is how great I am. I really want to put it up there to seed in. It's not about how great I am. I want to make a difference. I really do want to make a difference. I need to show you who and why and how my circles so that you understand I'm not some guy just up here. I have a network that is unlike any other in our world that can get glued together. So let's glue it together. There's a low and a high. I actually restructured it. It's actually lower than this low because we're getting more and more, as this grows, we're getting more and more donated time, donated people like, wait a minute, I want to do it. Now they're fighting over who wants to be the guy holding the camera. But a lot of times that kind of stuff, digitizing and camera hold, it's unionized. People have to get paid. So we got a lot of donated time, but a lot to put on the website, which is massive and involved and searchable, and that's a big expense. To get the song done and the video content and have it released, it's a big expense. So this is around the range, and most of the higher number, it's probably closer to 2 point something, but there's media buy. This is a breakdown. You're not going to be able to see it, but it basically tells you where certain pieces of the money go and why it has to get there for the project. There's 250 raised, another 100,000 committed. We actually, at the mastermind group, I presented a shorter version of this and walked out of the room with some soldiers. And it was an emotional, I did not expect. He just asked me to come, and because he was excited, he's like, I can't believe what you're doing. And I can't believe you're asking me for help. I can't believe you're going to get the space. Like, what? You got to tell these people about it. Let's see what their impression is. And we raised over $80,000 in a room so small. Like, if you guys don't understand what you do, your church doors, there is a ton of people that you touch, and you've saved more lives around this crisis than you'll ever know, because you're fixing people all the time. All the time. There's levels of people giving. This is more for corporate structured giving, where people are donating 50, 100, $1 million. If it's a corporation, they get different access, and where they get co-producing rights, so their name will actually come up on the end of the movie of who produced this thing. But I got to cherry pick who I'm asking to come in, where I tell them you have no control over what the messaging is. So Big Pharma spends in 1 year $200 million to market OxyContin. We're trying to raise some money to actually put this thing to bed. So quickly, because I know we're going to be raising enough, when this whole thing is done, there's 4, what do you call it? Additional campaigns, the documentaries. There you go, Johnny. 4 documentaries. 1, Pain and Killers, how Big Pharma duped Congressman, integrative treatment methods to put aside integrative treatment methods in favor of opioids. That's going to be an entire 30-minute thing about us, this room. Certain people in this room will have an opportunity to be in that documentary. He will definitely be in that documentary.
Well, I'm an author now, so
you are, that's right. You qualified a long time ago, buddy. There'll be another one on veterans, another one on sports injuries, and this is one that's dear to my heart. My family started an orphanage outside of Naples, Italy, and my father was all about children. On his last breath was don't forget the kids when he passed, so we've been trying to keep that in. And what we don't talk about is Generation O, is my term. It's generation overdose. There are hundreds of thousands of children with no parents, or parents in jail, or parents or children that have been taken from their parents as a result of this crisis. No one talks about it. And that's a place special in my heart, and I want to have another campaign that's going to be designed for people to be aware that you need to help in that aspect as well. And that's what I got to say.
So we're going to give him applause. But wait, there's more. There's an aspect of this you have to be aware of. So he's got a lot of powerful people that want to support this and want to be part of it. And there's 2 things that happen in Hollywood. They either want to take it over and change it to what they want, or they want to wait until there's enough donations that they know they're not backing a horse that's going to lose. Nobody in Hollywood wants to be connected to something that flops. Can you imagine that? So he's got to raise the initial money himself. And how much do we need?
To get this project to where I need to spawn off to get the bigger money, we're probably about $500,000. We're close.
That's what we have to do. We're close. So what he's going to do is on that page when it says the three things, if you have extra pills, if you need help, or you're looking to avoid the prescription in the first place, he wants to have a link there. And the people who donate, he wants to have them show up at the link. So how do we do this? Well, we can't do it for somebody donating $10, although we appreciate the $10. But what we decided is $1,000, a minimum donation of $1,000, you go on that list. And then the bigger your donation is, the more prominent you become on that list. So when people search in your area, they're being funneled to you. So is your wife going to be handing out?
There's some forms to fill out that are being handed out, but there's also a table after this, and you take a break. You could go there and there's a square and you can make a donation. It doesn't have to be at that level. If you were, I've spent a lot of money on BS advertising, and I've spent a lot of money to try to, I'm talking like $5,000, $10,000 campaigns that fell on their face. Or I buy tickets on the front row of some sporting event and hand them out to doctors or attorneys that I work with and never get anything back for it. So to get the exposure, I'm just trying to create it, and it's a little bit of money. And sometimes, and I'll talk about this, it's like $1,000. In Masterminds, we're talking about $5,000 and $10,000 donations that we got. That's why we got so many. They're obviously going to be at another notch up, and in other ways maybe get platformed and get their faces seen within this problem. But for me, I am so tired of looking behind me, and I got 1, 2 people. I'm doing this on my own. I mean, not on my own, because you see what the network of what I have. But after working with him, and I keep looking behind me, and I feel like there's just a massive amount of people. I feel like Khaleesi. I could have the dragons come out. I'm not as hot as she is, but. So.
Don't look at me when you say that.
I do kind of have a man crush on you, and it's awkward because my wife is passing those around. You see how attractive she is, so it's not that kind of thing, but there is a little bit of a
bromance.
Yeah. So any donation would be, thank you.
So here's the thing. He's just got to get to the tipping point. And with the masters alone, we had a masters meeting in North Carolina, and my partners at MSK, we raised $100,000. He needs more. This is going to benefit all of our professions. We will no longer be blamed as clinicians that caused this problem, because it'll be the clinicians who got us out of the problem. And then the individual clinics will be recognized. So what we're asking you to do is look into your heart and make any donation you can. I don't care how little or how big. But to get on that list, the minimum's got to be 1,000, and if you want to be prominent on that list, we're looking for more like 2,500. Anything you can do can help. But I will say this. The book that we're launching this weekend, every book that we sell this weekend, all the proceeds are going to you. That book. So, huh? Quiet you.
Dr. Rosa.
We'll get you back up on stage. We're going to do it, man. I told you, we're not fixing on change in healthcare, like they say in Tennessee. We are changing healthcare. And we're going to do it. We're going to stop this crisis. We're going to get Washington's attention, and we're going to position all of you as the place to go for the leading healthcare problem there is, chronic degenerative arthritis and back pain, and we're going to stop this bullshit from happening where people are being made into addicts. Are you guys with us? Woo! They're with you, brother.